Hi, so this is my reaction video slash paper to The Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs. I first want to start off by mentioning the quote in which Linda says, "The girl's mother said, 'The baby is dead. Thank God, and I hope my children will soon be in heaven too.' 'Heaven,' retorted the mistress, 'there is no such place for the like of her and her blank.' The poor mother turned away sobbing. Her dying daughter called her feebly, and as she bent over her, I heard her say, 'Don't grieve so, mother. God knows all about it, and he will have mercy upon me.'" I think this quote stood out to me the most because a mother was watching her daughter die, but yet she wanted her to die because slavery was so brutal and so cruel. And I think this is shown through Linda or Harriet's stories. What she went through to escape Dr. Flint and to escape slavery was so brutal, but it was worth it because she didn't have to be enslaved and wasn't under control of a white man who sexually assaulted her. And I think in this quote too, it's evident that these slaves were searching for anything other than slavery. They were just hoping for something better, whether that would be when they died, they go to heaven, or if they were in a crawl space and they could just hear the voice of their children. I think it just really exemplifies how cruelly they were treated, because a mother wanting her daughter to die is a huge statement saying how bad slavery was, because all mothers, that's the last person they want to see go is their child. So the next quote I want to mention was, "The rats and mice ran over my bed, but I was weary and I slept such sleep as the wretched may. When a tempest has passed over them, morning came. I knew it only by the noises I heard, for in my small den day and night were all the same. I suffered for air even more than for light, but I was not comfortless. I heard the voices of my children." I think this quote also stood out to me because it really describes well what situation she was living in that crawl space. It makes you think about what it'd be like to be in her shoes. So I went to imagine living in a crawl space where you couldn't really move, you had rats and mice, you had cold weather, and you just were trapped there. And I just could never imagine being in that situation, and I just think it's so heartbreaking that not long ago, slaves were putting themselves in these situations because slavery was so much worse than that. For me, that just seems like the worst thing ever, but it was so much worse for so many other people, and it just shows how wrong slavery was in all of it. The last quote I want to mention says, "Yet I would have chosen this rather than my lot as a slave. The white people considered it an easy one, and it was so compared with the fate of others. I was never cruelly overworked. I was never lacerated with the whip from head to foot." So I think this shows how slaves were not only treated treated violently physically, but also mentally. So Linda, although she never was whipped, never was burned, she was treated so horribly mentally, and it affected her mental health more than anything. And I think that's not mentioned enough in today's society, because that mental factor is still there for Black people today. There's always that thought, is that person going to be racist? If I say this, could I potentially get shot? There's a lot more concern for a Black person today because of their history and because they're Black. And it's that mental aspect that I think goes so underlooked, but I think it needs to be have attention raised to it, because no Black person should be worried about it, and everyone should feel safe. And sadly, that's not how it is today yet, and I think this shows by her mentioning how she was just mentally treated poorly, how so much still needs to change, and how a fight for equality still is necessary. Overall, I think this story, Linda's story, Harriet's story, I think it just shows well what slaves would go through to get just even slightly away from slavery and from being enslaved. They would really go through anything, really, even death, as we see through the first quote. And to know that, I think it just shows how brutal and how cruel it was and how wrong it was. Yeah, thank you.